crisis in the Eurozone is just beginning. We'll see bailouts and temporary fixes presented as solutions over and over, but in the end, it will collapse. This collapse will not be constrained to the Eurozone, but will be part of a much larger systemic failure, a global economic collapse. Regardless of which country you live in, this is going to impact your life. We got a glimpse of things to come this past week with the Cyprus banking crisis, when bank accounts were frozen to prevent withdrawals as politicians debated taking money directly from deposits to bail out the banks. In the end, the decision was made this morning that accounts holding more than 100,000 euros will in fact have a portion expropriated. A total of 4.2 billion euros is going to be taken without any due process and used to prop up the banks which caused the crisis in the first place. You might think that these people with more than 100,000 euros in their account are rich and therefore can afford to have their money stolen from them. But what about those for whom this money represented their retirement? 100,000 euros is not that much to leave someone if they still have 30 years left to live. And the way things are shaping up, counting on pensions or government support is beyond naive. This was theft, pure and simple, and most likely, there's more to come. Now, if you've been paying attention over the past couple of years, you've probably noticed that Cyprus was just the latest of a series of flare-ups in the Eurozone. The entire economic bloc is plagued by a sovereign debt crisis, which was compounded by credit default swaps, derivatives, and accounting tricks designed to bypass EU deficit rules. The solution that keeps being offered to each of these flare-ups comes down to bailouts for the banks, with the citizens footing the bill. Now, of course, these bailouts are not free money, they are loans. To simplify it, Europe is trying to patch up a debt problem with more debt. Obviously, that's not going to work. What would work would be to follow Iceland's example by nullifying the debt and pressing criminal charges on the bankers. Iceland is already recovering right now. Unfortunately, this isn't going to happen unless enough people wake up. If we don't wake enough people up, the story unfolding in front of us is pretty grim. How serious is the situation? Switzerland seems to think it's pretty serious. This past September, the Swiss army held drills to prepare for an economic meltdown in neighboring European countries. The focus was on keeping out a flood of refugees. This isn't coming from some half-cocked conspiracy theorist website. This is from Bloomberg's BusinessWeek.com. Of course, the United States is in no position to make snide comments. With a national debt of $16.7 trillion and climbing, and its own derivatives bubble just waiting to pop, it should be clear that it too is headed for a meltdown. To see the evidence that the US government is actively preparing for such a meltdown, please watch our video entitled "The Government is Preparing for Collapse, and Not in a Nice Way." It's uncertain which one will go down first. It could be the dollar, it could be the euro. However, what's important to realize here is that when one comes down, they will both come down. And when they do, they will take down China and the rest of the world with them. To see why, we just need to look at the volume of trade moving between China, the US, and Europe. By GDP, China, the US, and Europe are the largest economic blocs in the world. The US and China are the top two trading partners for Europe. Europe and the US are the top two trading partners for China. And China is in the top three trading partners for the United States. Now, what should be clear here is that this is a system of interdependence. If any of them go down, it'll take the others down. This is why we see China continuing to buy US debt, even though it's obvious that the majority of this debt will never be paid off. And China has its own problems. You remember how the housing bubble in the United States set off the downturn of 2008? Well, China has a real estate bubble of its own, one that many experts believe dwarfs the US housing bubble by a long shot. China doesn't just have ghost shopping malls, they have ghost cities.
Is China experiencing a property bubble?
Well, absolutely. A property bubble like which I don't think we've ever seen.
Bigger than the one in the United States?
Yes, I think it'll make the United States pale into comparison. It's said that there's around 64 million empty apartments in China, and that's been
64 million.
64 million.
One way or another, this system is coming down. But why? Is it because industries aren't producing enough? Is it because we've run out of natural resources? Have we run out of things that need to be done? No, of course not. The system is coming down because modern money is based on debt. This whole paradigm of having money be created by the issuance of government bonds and by private banks making loans for money that they don't have on their accounts guaranteed this situation from the very beginning. The problem isn't government spending levels in Greece or low taxes in Cyprus. The problem is fractional reserve banking. Fractional reserve banking is a fancy word to describe the policy of allowing banks to loan out 9 times what they have in their deposits. When I say 9 times, this is for the United States. In many countries, the reserve requirements are much lower, or even non-existent. Now let's put this into perspective. Banks loan out money that they don't have, and they charge interest. If the person who took out the loan loses their job and misses a payment, the banks take the asset attached to that loan. And if somehow these banks are able to get themselves into trouble even with this insane financial advantage, the citizens are forced to bail them out. But wait, there's more. They're already getting ready for the next Ponzi scheme. This time, they want to sell the world a truly global currency. And who will control it? Well, of course, it's going to be the same people who caused the current crisis. See, the problem is, we didn't give them enough power. That's why they screwed everything up. Of course, when this all goes down, the politicians and the mainstream media are going to pretend that no one saw this coming. They're going to pretend that this just came out of nowhere. And they're counting on you to buy that. And they're counting on you being too confused to resist when they present you with this new currency. If you think it's bad now with private banks controlling the money supply, just imagine what will happen when the central bank which issues that currency isn't even on the same continent as you. This is what the banking cartels want. If they get their way, they will have every nation in the world on a single leash. They will have total control. This will not be democratic, there will be no accountability, and the citizens will have no recourse. In short, it will be a financial dictatorship. And over time, that will naturally translate into a dictatorship on every other level. That is, if the people go along with it. When this system comes down, we're going to have a choice. Either we break with this current monetary paradigm, or we go deeper into slavery. Some would say we don't have a chance in turning this around, but the reality is, it's the bankers who are going out on a limb here. This scheme has almost no chance of succeeding in the long run. Collapsing Eurozone should be taken as a hint in that regard. Over and over throughout history, madmen have attempted to take control of the world through military and financial moves. But in the end, they always fail, and it usually doesn't end well for them when the people finally rise up. The problem is that the people keep rising up only to replace the system with something virtually identical. That's why right now people need to be educating themselves and others on the true nature of money. It's only by reaching a critical mass of awareness that we will have any chance of finding a real alternative. If you feel that people need to hear this message, please share this video in every way that you can think of. Post it to your Facebook, to your Twitter, to your blog, or email it to your friends. And if you want more content like this, please subscribe to this channel, Storm Clouds Gathering, on YouTube. For bonus content, follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/StormCloudsGathering, on Twitter at Collapse Updates, and our website, stormcloudsgathering.com.